the baby.
Wait,
Bounce on the bouncy ball.
You sit on a bouncy ball to make you go to sleep?
Yes, and it works sometimes.
I love this. I love that we're doing this. By the way, do you have a libation? I know you can't drink because you're breastfeeding, but do you have like? Oh snap! Me too. I have my
water.
little bottle.
Yes, keep it cold. In Sierra Leone, we have to get the insulated one that keeps it cold. Otherwise, it turns into tea every time we go outside.
Wait a minute, you lived in Sierra Leone?
That's where we live now, girl. This is a temporary arrangement. All this.
I thought you lived in Ethiopia.
I did before. We moved to Sierra Leone in May.
You are such
I'm busy listening to you and how you're doing. That's why you don't know. That's good. I feel good about that because usually I talk too much. I don't know what's going on with anybody else.
So you lived in Ethiopia before, but now you live in Sierra Leone.
3 years in Ethiopia.
Actually, when you guys go back to Sierra Leone, you said you have a nice house there, right?
Yes.
Can I come visit?
Pull up.
I'm really gonna come visit, Natalie. You know I'm
Yes, you should definitely bring a friend with you too.
Why?
I work like a dog in Sierra Leone, so I probably won't be able to take up as much time. I will take off time, but I want you to like see it with, have a playmate.
I'm like a house cat. When I come visit people, I don't really need to be tended to that much.
But you have to get out, like you.
Oh, no, I have to get out, but like
the beach and it's spa.
When you have people visit, sometimes they want you to be like a tour manager, like taking them on activities every day, like you're at camp. I'm not one of those people. I want to have time to like write and like kiki and be on the internet with the waves crashing. Like I don't need all the.
You can have a whole wing of the house to yourself.
Now you're just flexing. That's fine. Okay, so before Natalie talks about the mini mansion in Sierra Leone, my gosh. Hey guys, if you've been hearing me talking to this voice, this is my good childhood friend, Natalie Gill-Mensah. You look beautiful, Natalie.
Thank you.
And you. I know, because you have a busy life. And when you said you were going to make time for this, I was so happy. What I'm not happy about is the fact that we couldn't find a podcast studio in Boston.
No, I wanted to be in the room with you, but we're going to make it work.
Can we still look for one? Like, is it possible?
Yeah. I mean, there exists. This is my first podcast in a while, so I don't know. I don't look for these things. But
you're in the country till the end of June, right?
Till the beginning of July. I'm currently looking for flights this first week in July-ish.
I want to get out so fast. I could feel
these allergies. Do you know that the pollen is slowly killing people, children especially, in Boston?
Wow. What a great way.
Horrible.
In Boston, and specifically the pollen is killing people.
Yes, I mean maybe also Connecticut or something, but Boston for sure. My poor child has never had an allergy. He's been in Ethiopia since 18 months. I didn't even know allergies could get that bad.
No, the allergies in California tried to kill me when I first moved here. Like I was on set because I came out here to do a talk show and I was first chair, and I have lost count of how many times production had to stop rolling tape to bring me tea because my throat was closing up while I was talking and reading my lines.
My son's eyes were like literally, they thought if they would have called Child Protective Services, thinking that he had 2 black eyes, or so swollen and dark circles, but it was all allergies. Never seen anything like that in my life.
It's not natural. I'm happy you're on today because number one, we are going to circle back about finding a podcast studio in Boston.
Let's do it.
Because you and I being in the same state, let alone actually the same continent, let alone the same state. We have not been on the same continent. It doesn't happen often, and when it doesn't happen for long. So the fact that you're here to give birth to your beautiful baby that you, Xavier.
Real talk. This is gonna be the outing of that too, because I haven't been on social media, so I've decided that this will be the introduction of Xavier to the world because I'm gonna talk about him.
I love that.
We're talking about motherhood.
Yeah, the topic of motherhood is so I don't want to say nuanced. I feel like I use that word a lot. It is so multifaceted for me because when we were sitting in the living room that day where I was like, no, Nat needs to be on the podcast. We spent 2 hours talking about what it's like to be a mother, to not be a mother, and to have a mother. Mm-hmm. And that
circle of life.
Literally, we bring life into the world. It literally is a circle of life. Mother's Day just passed not too long ago. And my first question is, because I made it a point not to talk to you before we did this.
Okay.
No, because whenever I'm about to have a friend come on the pod, if we talk and kiki beforehand, there's nothing left to talk about on the pod. So the first thing is, how was your Mother's Day? How did you spend your Mother's Day this year? Well, that's a slow blink. Open your eyes, friend.
And It was actually a really scary Mother's Day. We were in the ER for a
Ooh.
good several hours. I thought about whether or not I was going to share this because, as a mom, sometimes we do a lot of self-shaming
Mhm.
because we can't do it all. We can't be everywhere and see everything. And I have a 5-year-old, and now I have a 1 month today year old. I'm not
Happy
year,
birthday,
one
Xavier,
month
1 month
old.
old.
And thank you. And my 5-year-old loves my 1 month old so much. So when he cries, he tries to rush to his aid. And so on Mother's Day, I was taking care of others, even though, it's supposed to be the switch up, but we're like all fatigued, not sleeping with newborn. And finishing up dishes. Xavier was in the room, like a room over, and Thaddeus was between us,
Mhm.
like doing his own thing. And I could hear him. I didn't have him on my eyesight, but I could hear him, which is I'm able to pick up everything through that usually. So he starts crying. And so I like put stuff down and I go to see what's wrong. And Thaddeus has him in his hands and holding him. And Thaddeus hasn't figured out like how to hold him yet. Like,
Right, 'cause it's
well,
5.
as he's 5. And it was, really well intentioned. And I like freaked out and I froze and I had told him before not to pick him up without an adult in the room. And so I was kind of like, Thaddeus, you can't hold him like that, put him down. And Thaddeus dropped him and he fell on his head and he cried really hard. Like there's different cries for babies, right? There's
Right.
the pain cry, there's the hunger cry, there's and I like first I froze and I freaked out and I was like, oh my gosh. And I picked him up and I shushed him and he was okay, seemingly, but I still, anything that hits the head, you have
Yeah.
to go and check it out. And so I took my baby and he had a a CT scan.
Mhm.
He's like 9 pounds. I mean, he was born 9 pounds. They put like gauze in between his head and the like stirrups to keep it in place.
Oh my
And
god, I would've started crying.
oh, I cried so hard when it happened. And then I kind of took him upstairs and watched him sleep for 30 minutes before I called the doctor. I was just like making sure he's still breathing. And then it was the technician at the CT was like, this could take 2 minutes or 2 hours. Because you
Mm.
have to be still for a CT scan and you
Yeah.
can't communicate to an infant, never mind a newborn to be still. So he was fine, no bruises or issues internal or external in his head. Because Thaddeus is so short and close to the ground, he didn't fall that far, but to see that happen, and I was just like, that was like my worst nightmare on
Yeah.
Mother's Day. So
And this happened on Mother's Day, so
on
I
Mother's
can't
Day, so I'll
imagine.
remember it for the rest of my life and his life, of course.
How did
But
you
he's
make
okay.
sure that Thaddeus didn't internalize shame? Because you mentioned how it's easy to feel shameful in that situation as an adult, let alone a 5-year-old.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
You know, in that moment, I was thinking about Xavier being okay, and I was also thinking about Thaddeus being okay because he was experiencing his own internal shame. I didn't yell at him. I didn't, I said I stayed calm in a calm voice, and I was like, Thaddeus, you have to wait for an adult to be in the room to pick him up. You understand why now?
Mhm.
And he says yes, and he was quiet and he looked really scared. He always looked like I'm going to like he's waiting for me to shame him or yell at him. And I don't, because I
Mhm.
know how that hurts for a really long time into adulthood. And so, and then he kind of disappeared. And so I called him. I was hushing the baby and I called Daddy. So I was like, come here, give me a hug. I was like, it's gonna be okay. I was like, I know you see mommy crying, but I'm gonna be okay. And Xavier is gonna be okay. Don't worry. I know you were trying to help. And so I said, do you understand? He said, yes, mommy. And I said, okay. But yeah, it was, I don't even know if that was enough to calm his everything, but I was thinking, I don't want him to feel like it's his fault. Because it's my responsibility to have eyes on both of them, right? And but it's not my fault
It's not
either
your
because I
fault.
can't be everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So
And that's one of the
yeah.
things we talk about a lot in the class. And I'm so happy that you and Kwame is Natalie's beautiful husband, and they're both taking the class this season. And It's so interesting because a lot of what you're saying, I can tell is informed by what didn't happen for you. Because we've talked about this a lot, about how we both have families that are from the Caribbean and Latin America, and they move differently. If that had happened in 1992, and it was one of us with our parents, they would not have been so like focused on making sure that we weren't internalizing shame. They might have called us stupid and made us leave the room, and then take to the baby and be yelling, be alarmist, be acting in a way that would make it burn into our brains that we might have done something to our brother. And so I always find it interesting how what our parents, quote unquote, didn't do right often informs. Yeah, we're always trying to be compassionate so that we don't do it to our kids. And you know what's wild? I don't have any biological children, but whenever I talk to a mother, there's no gap in understanding because I had my first godson at 9 months old, and I've had to like raise all the kids in my family, which is why I moved out of the state, because they kept popping out babies and expecting me to raise them. And it's so interesting how all the fatigue of motherhood I know, the contraction pain of motherhood I know, in fact, unfortunately, because of the cramps that I have. We talked about my endometriosis previously on the show. The only part of motherhood that I've never experienced and that I can't feel empathy for is what it's like to actually carry a baby for 9 months and then birth it, right? And that's a major part of it. And I had a friend one time who was saying, Blue, be careful when you say that, because there's tons of mothers who also don't have that experience. There are tons of mothers who have surrogates or they adopt or whatever. So she was like, why are you discounting the way that you can relate to motherhood just because the physical piece is missing? However, and you know, not to share too much of your business, Natalie, you and I are about the same age. Look at your face.
I'm younger.
By a year. Natalie's a year younger than me. Actually,
I'm leaning into the year, girl.
It's 10 months, but I'm being nice. It's Natalie. It's 10
Who
months.
needs to calculate specifics?
Okay, you said you were younger. So we're 10 months apart, and watching somebody who was within a year of my age being pregnant and like going to that last sonogram with you. By the way, thank you for inviting me to come to your sonogram with you.
Coming.
It felt so good to be in the room. I was like, oh, it's a sonogram. Look at the baby.
Yeah, you claim to have named my baby during the sonogram, and I don't recall.
No, it wasn't during the sonogram. It was a month earlier.
Oh, a month earlier.
You have pregnancy. Here's the thing about pregnancy
brain. I don't know nothing about a month ago, yesterday.
So this is the thing about pregnancy brain that I think is so interesting, is because this, I know, thank God. But the same time that you and I decided to do the podcast was the first time that you told me that you were looking for a strong name for your baby. You were sitting on the floor, because I guess sitting on the couch was a little bit painful for you. So you slid to the floor and you were like, I still haven't figured out a name yet. And I said, what kind of name are you looking for? And I was sitting on the other couch across from you, and you were like, something as strong as Thaddeus. And I was like, well, I'm hearing Xavier. And then for the following month, I proceeded to call him Xavier, including during the sonogram. I'm going to go look at the videos that I took of us when we were walking out, because I'm hoping I said it on the tape. And I kept on saying Xavier. And then one time I said it on the phone and I said, I don't want to be disrespectful. I keep on calling you baby Xavier. What do you want me to call the baby? And you said, call him baby Mensa 3 or something. And that's when we had, as a result of me asking you, what do I call your baby instead of Xavier? You said call him baby Mensa 3. And that's when you shared about your different pregnancies and why the numbers were what they were. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be respectful and call it baby Mensa 3. So when you sent me the text saying my baby's name is Xavier, I called you like, girl, thinking we were going to have a moment. And you were like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
No idea. Still don't. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you for, putting that into the atmosphere. I must have received it.
And
I believe it happened. I just do not recall.
But Thaddeus named him. So I don't even think I named Thaddeus named the baby. So I don't think I named the baby. I think the exact words I used was, I'm hearing Xavier. So I think I was picking up.
We gave Thaddeus 2 options and one of them were Xavier. So like we narrowed down Harrison.
I like Xavier.
Yeah, Thaddeus preferred Xavier to Harrison.
I
didn't want to give him too many options, because when I asked him, I tried to have Thaddeus name him, and
what did he come up with? Coco Melon.
Yeah, like he was, I don't know, like Chase, or he was like Paw Patrol, like whoever he's into at the moment. He comes up with names of characters, and I said, not quite. We want to be as cool as Thaddeus.
Now here's the thing too, like being a mother is such a big deal. And last week's episode we had Monique Slaughter from Love and Hip Hop talking about her complicated relationship with her mother and to motherhood herself in the limelight as somebody who's in the Hollywood system. You worked in the Peace Corps, you're doing all this interesting government work and traveling all over the world. with all the epic things you do, is mother still the title that is the loudest for you? Like, what's the loudest title? Is it mother, wife, daughter, world savior, traveler, Gemini? Like, what is the identifier that you identify with the most?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a most. I definitely have started pronouncing and introducing myself differently. Shout out to Girl Trek. I don't know if you follow Girl Trek, but they had this daughter of series.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started introducing myself in like workspaces as the daughter of, Amelia and Garfield Gill, mother of Thaddeus, so because we spend so much time as Americans or as adults describing and defining ourselves by what we do and not who we are to others. And I thought I've become more intentional about that. Even my tag on Instagram is like mother, wife, daughter, sister, because those things are really important.
Yeah.
I think right in this moment, because I'm a new mom again, and you can be a new mom more than once, because I forgot everything from 5 years ago, let me tell you. I definitely mother is resonating loudest for me,
Right.
but I in my big age, I now try to define myself as something deeper than just what I do, because what I do is interesting and fun and cool, but it doesn't match being a mom, or going through the beautiful journey that is marriage. And my relationship with my mother has changed a lot. It's improved a lot. I've become better with setting boundaries, and you know how I struggle with setting boundaries.
We've had long car conversations about setting boundaries with our mothers. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think, you know, once you get past the 40, things start to become clear. Or, you just decide to care not to care about as much things
Yeah.
as you
Pick
once
your
did, because
battle.
it's just not important. Yeah, exactly. How do I want to spend my energy? I now know that I have a choice. I have a choice to be angry. I have a choice to be calm. I have a choice to engage or choose not to engage. If somebody wants to come at me, I have a choice to walk away. And I
Even if
feel
you were to
better
have
for
like
it
a
and stronger
chemical
for it.
imbalance or be triggered, you also have a choice to get the resources so that you have the support to help you when you can't make those choices. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I grapple with a lot of times when I hear conversations about identifiers, and I wanted to have this conversation with you because I feel like because we've known each other since what, you were 12 and I was 13, we've literally seen each other through, first of all, how did we even meet, Natalie? I was trying to think about that when I was preparing for the
I
show. Because
think
you didn't go
I
to school with me, and yet you were always around to the point where you
No,
were
but I
popular
loved your
member of our
school. I
school.
wished I went to your school because
By
my
the way, we want to
friend
shout out my school. I went to Boston Latin
Boston Latin
Academy.
Academy.
Amazing.
I liked my school too. I was a Metco kid, an integration kid. Um, Wait, I think we met either at the summer doctor, like medical health program at Tufts Medical
No,
School.
because I recommended you for that 4 years later.
Um, or
Your memory really is a little bit garbage, friend. Because
it's
okay,
okay.
so now I feel better about the Xavier thing.
Or we met at the Y through Cindy.
No, I
Our
introduced you to Cindy.
You didn't introduce me to Cindy, did you?
Yes, I introduced you to Cindy.
Then I must have met you at the Y, like the teen center
It
or
was probably
something.
the why. Natalie,
I
you
met so many great people in my life at the Y. Big up to YMCA, teen
yeah, when I
centers,
was
youth
12,
programs.
when I was 13, it's when I went through my anorexic phase, and I had started a pact of girls from my school who
Mm.
I was like the girl. Oh, Regina from the Mean Girls. I went through a slight Mean Girl phase where I sat down my friend Veronica and my friend Yolanda, and I said, if you eat Cheez-Its, I'm stopping them out of your hands because this summer we're gonna get snatched. And they were like,
Veronica's one
oh.
hell of a hype mistress when it comes to working out too. She picked
And
the
it's so,
right
but I feel bad because I put the battery pack in her back, like, yo, we're gonna do this thing. And I accidentally made all of us have an eating disorder. I mean, we were snatched, but hungry all the time. And so we
one.
lived at the YMCA. We lived
You
there. And
did. And you inspired me to work out. So I would work out with you guys.
I
And
used
then
to
I
work
would
out 2 times a day, 6 days a week.
mm-mm. It's not
Yeah, it was
I mean, that's
extreme.
healthy for somebody, but I think it depends on your body,
It also depends
and
on the reason too, right? Like I had an eating disorder. It wasn't like I was working out because I love my body. I was working out because I hated myself and I just wanted to shrink as much as possible. And it's so interesting how now that I'm older and thinking about working out, the reasonings could not be any more different.
Mhm.
One of the things that always struck me was one of the girls that was in the group that we were hanging out with, Tawana. You remember Tawana?
very much.
Yeah, she passed away a couple years ago. I
Can't believe
remember
that.
that whenever I would lose weight, she would stop being my friend. And so I used to
Mm.
associate being thin with not being likable to other girls. Like I was like, oh,
Mm.
whenever I'm thin, they don't like me. And then I get fat again. And suddenly everybody wants to be my friend. So in my mind, it was almost like gaining the weight for like protection because I wasn't a threat anymore. You didn't have to worry about your boyfriend or me getting attention. So I was talking to my friend Brittany recently. She was like, Blue, and I think, because I was telling her how I've been losing a little bit of weight because of my lifestyle changes. And she was like, Blue, when I think of you and your weight, I don't think of heaviness. I think of protection.
Hmm.
And that struck me. She's like, you don't feel like a heavy person. You feel like the weight was to protect you. And I was like, girl, you have no idea how on point that is.
I honestly think, especially in the high school years and even college, young women or girls make friends with people that they feel like they look better or make them look good so that they can
Yeah.
feel like they have. I definitely had friends like that. I've always been overweight most of my life. I've been through every weight with my mom. Me and my mom have been
I've
through
seen
every
it.
weight
You guys were impressive.
loss thing that you've ever heard of in your life. And yeah, I think some people would honestly befriend me so that because they knew they were slimmer than me or they had longer hair than me or they, and so I made them look like the better choice to the boys or whatever. But I don't think I ever thought I was not beautiful. I definitely thought I was fat.
But you
But
knew
I
you were
didn't,
cute.
but I didn't always define that as not. I had really long, well, not really, but I had considerably long hair. It took me. That was why when I went to the continent for the first time, it was Ghana, and cutting it off to be like 2 inches long. I don't know if you remember my teeny weeny afro
I
twat.
remember that phase. Yeah.
That was like me really loving myself. I think for the first time
Mhm.
because I was big, I felt like it was like my hair and my breasts were
Yes.
like my two biggest. So I always had still got my cleavage out, but not
No, I
because
always say back in the 90s, the big girls we were impeccable about our accessories, like our nails and our hair and like our like those little things that we could do because in our titties, basically. This is before ass was the big deal. Back then it was
and the world loved the
oh my God.
tattoo. So
Hold
yeah,
on a quick second. Hold on for a
yep,
quick
yep.
second. Let's make sure I fix the camera. All right. So you said something that kind of struck me just now about how you recognize in retrospect that a lot of people made friends with you because they thought that you were the safe fat girl that they could be friends with. And you know, it was so interesting. I had a friend, I won't name her, who it wasn't until somebody else pointed it out that I realized had become my friend for that reason. And I lost 100 pounds and she started acting funny. She started acting real funny. I was like, what do you mean? I mean, we're like so close. Like, what's the issue? And then I realized my friend was like, she doesn't like you anymore because you're thin. Like she's like, they were like, your face is already cuter than hers, which is this friend was being an asshole. But she's the body. You're the face and she's the body. And I hadn't thought of it that way because that's a fucked up way to think about your friends, right? But when I became thin, she was suddenly the butterhead because we were the same size. And this is not how I saw it. To me, she was beautiful. Like, this is what I'm hearing from other people. And I realized in that moment that like, I didn't want to like threaten her in that way. So once again, I gained 100 pounds back 3 times for friends. Because I kept on feeling like if I'm thin, I'm going to be too, like, people don't want to be my friend if I'm thin. And at this age, I realized that like, I wish I could go back in time and tell that version of me, that's not how friendship works. If you had to think back, because I feel like high school, we both went through so much because the 90s were brutal. For anybody who's watching this who was not a teenager in the 90s,
Well,
it was a brutal time to be coming of age because the beauty standards were not just unrealistic like they are now, they were also problematic in a way that people didn't have the language to call out. Like now, if you're being fat phobic or being transphobic or being homophobic, whatever phobic, there's a whole like script of language to be called out by somebody who gives a damn. In the 90s, you were just getting clowned. And you just had to eat it and hope for the best.
yeah, the capping, like the yo mom, the era of the yo mama jokes.
Your mama, or even if you were Afro Latin, they'd be like, "What? Why? If you Panamanian or Cuban or Dominican, why you so dark?" The colorism was high back then in a way that the 90s was like the golden age of R&B music.
I mean, I think it still is, honestly.
It is, but now it's almost like people have to pretend because it's not socially accepted the way it used to be. Back then, you could be colorist to somebody's face and everybody would clap and laugh. Now you do it, you might get a Twitter thread about you and lose your job. Like at least there's a little bit of consequence. What was your favorite and least favorite part about us growing up and coming of age in the 90s? Your favorite and least favorite?
My favorite thing about the 90s, I think, one of them, there's probably more than one, is music. Like
Absolutely.
Jodeci, boys, like there's no music has never been greater than the 90s. I mean, maybe the 70s or the 60s, but not since then. Like, you know, and I still listen to 90s music and go to
Absolutely.
90s music concerts because it makes me feel alive and the people actually can sing. There's no auto-tone and you know, they don't lean into all the technology to make them sound better because they actually automatically do. So music is one. Um, Not being an internet age, I miss that.
Like
Like
living in
talking to
real time.
people, like memorizing phone numbers and call it a. I remember there's some numbers I remember. I remember numbers from high school and middle school, and I don't remember any numbers now.
Exactly
Like,
the same.
and you see, I don't remember people's names or you know things that you told me happened that I don't know happened. You know, but I remember people's phone numbers today from high school
Yeah.
because it was a thing and you called and you talked to your friends for hours and you left all the compare like there wasn't the comparison. I mean there were comparisons but it wasn't like on Facebook scrolling like oh my life's better than hers my life you know and not that I do
Yeah.
that or anything but I know people do. Yeah, 90s was like a people to people time and I
Yeah.
really miss people to people. What I did not like about the 90s, goodness, I thought I liked neon. Is
Oh,
that
I love
maybe
neon.
that's 80s. Maybe that's 80s. I
First of
remember
all, it's the
watching a lot
80s,
of
but I still
neon.
love neon.
Okay.
I love me a good chartreuse. Y'all look up chartreuse. It's a beautiful color.
I look back at the neon choices I made in the 90s and 80s, and I'm disappointed or
Maybe it's
sad
the
that I made
makeup.
those choices.
I feel like the neon could have been cool because the 90s are back. The neon is back now. So those
Hot
clothes are in
pink,
now, but the makeup was wild. We look ashy in the face back then.
green. I never really wore makeup, so I don't know. Yeah.
Well, you think for the question, my favorite part of the 90s was definitely R&B music and love.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because I think the reason why we love 90s music so much is because 90s music was probably a golden era of like exalting love in the most beautiful way. It's like all the lessons we learned from the 60s, 70s, and 80s about how to make beautiful music and all the begging our daddies were doing back then. And it came together perfectly in the 90s. And so the music in the 90s to me is also tied to the love in the 90s, right? Like Love Jones, like
Mm-hmm.
where like
Oh,
a
the
man really,
movies were
yeah, he
amazing.
would
And
choose you.
soundtracks.
Again, I think love and music peaked a lot, particularly for the African-American community in the 90s. And I loved the way that people were being open. Like there's an emotional intelligence that the 90s had when it came to courtship that I miss. I miss 90s courtship. Like I miss my aunt when her boyfriend would come pick her up. He would take her to ice cream on Sundays. Like the idea of getting dressed up on a Sunday and making your hair cute and making yourself smell like Shalimar or whatever else, Jean Nate, whatever the cologne was back then, and having a man come and pick you up, not tell you to catch an Uber to his house at 2 a.m.
Girl.
Like I miss the courtship of the
I
90s.
wouldn't go. If somebody asked me to do that. That's not happening.
What
Um,
don't I miss? I don't miss how normalized dysfunction was in the 90s because we are still dysfunctional. But again, at least now we have the language to acknowledge that it's dysfunctional. There were things like I watched a lot of old 90s sitcoms that have come out on Netflix.
mhm.
A lot of them aren't aging well. Living Single is actually probably one of the best aging 90s sitcoms that I've ever seen because I've been binging them a lot lately. It's still
Mm.
aged beautifully. They had a plus size protagonist who wasn't white presenting. Her friends were different shapes, sizes, and heights, different
Mhm.
bodies and everything else. You saw people over the age of 30 actually falling in love. Like they acted like Queen Latifah was beautiful because she was. And Queen Latifah, shout out to her.
Is
She's the reason why I knew I was cute back then because I was like, oh, wait, y'all think that's cute? We wear the same size and my hair looks like, oh, maybe I'm cute. And it felt like the boys who liked me, she gave them permission to be able to tell the people that they liked me. So
she
Queen
was
Latifah,
such an important to women of size. Yes, she was
Queen
very
Latifah does not get enough credit for being the original organic body positivity queen. Like all the
Mhm.
people now who talk about body positivity and get all these brand deals, all the folks that we love like Lizzo and such, Ashley Graham, all these girls stand on the shoulders of Dana. Okay. And so
Mhm.
to
And
me,
she wasn't even trying. She was just being herself.
and was fine
That's
as hell.
amazing.
It's still fine. Like she's aging beautifully too, which makes
She's
me feel
so beautiful.
she's still beautiful. So to me, courtship, Queen Latifah and R&B music was my favorite part of the 90s. And my least favorite part was the fact that you could be colorist, sexist, racist, whatever else, and there would be a laugh track pretending like it was okay. Like that was my least favorite part. Like it was problematic, but we sometimes glorify it because the problems were being put on Wi-Fi because we didn't have Wi-Fi yet. How are you dealing with or feeling about the act of aging, friend? Because I still feel like honestly, the way I'm dressed today is probably the way that I was dressed when we first met. Like I'm wearing, I think I have a Peter Pan thing happening that I didn't intend. Although they do say people with Gemini in their chart a lot tend to age a little bit slower because it's a youthful sign. But how are you?
I like that.
You like that part?
I have a lot of Gemini on my chart. I like that.
How you feel about aging? Do you feel like you're excited about aging? Are you annoyed about it? Are you making tweaks? Because my view on aging has evolved a bit because I've learned to be a little bit more honest because I think I was in denial up until a couple of months ago about how I feel. And now my answer now is probably different than it would have been a year ago.
Yeah, I feel good about aging, you know? I feel like I am where I'm supposed to be. I feel like 20s and 30s are just kind of looking for something, searching, and I'm still searching. I still like to reinvent myself every now and then. But in this moment, I feel like, you know, que sera, whatever will be, what it will be. I think the first time I felt aging was 38. And I thought the things I was feeling at 38 didn't happen until you're in your 50s, like the achiness, arthritis. I had like arthritis in my hand. And then the biggest thing was like when I had to take, I wear glasses, y'all. I'm trying to be cute today. When I had to take my glasses off, I was like, to read the fine print in the notebook.
Oh, when you're reading with your glasses, you look just like your mom. Like you make the exact same facial expressions she makes. It's so funny.
I need the I don't know what I need. I haven't gotten it yet. I'm still in denial about that. Yeah, I don't know. I hope it's not bifocals, but I need the 2 type of tier thing because I have to like do this. And that started at 38, 39. And I was like, I'm not even 40 yet. What is this? The gray hair has been coming in for a while. I have what people call a baby face, although I feel grown. People think I have a baby face. And because I work in leadership roles or I was going after management roles, I let my gray hair come in. I made that choice for my career. I probably would have been more vain and died. And maybe I could die now because I kind of met a lot of the goals I was reaching for. I still have more goals to go for, but I like them now. I think they give a certain level of sophistication. Like I've been here a little bit and
I've been here.
Beautiful. Gray is beautiful. It's a part of it's natural and it's beautiful. And I've seen, especially with the natural hair movement and the greater acceptance of having natural hair, seeing like women with big bushy gray afros or gray streaks, or I think that's beautiful and haughty, you know? And so I want to lean into this age. I'm not mad at aging. It's happening. I have so much more life to live. I had this big goal when I was turning 40, and I'm now 41, gonna be 42
in like
in
what,
a few days.
A few days, actually, yeah.
I mean, yeah, a couple weeks. And so I had this goal of seeing the world and like getting to 40 countries by 40. So I met that goal with Seychelles in May of 2020. I guess was it 2020? That was pandemic. 2021 was my 40th country. And so now it's like, can I keep up with my age? You know, I feel like I'm living. I think the worst part about aging is when you stop living.
Yeah.
And you feel like because of an age that you've arrived at, that you can't do something. I still feel like I can do most things if I put my mind to it. It's just making the choice.
It's crazy you mentioned that because I realized a couple of days ago, because I just got back from Boston like 6 hours ago. Like I haven't, it's like the longest nap after we finished this episode, friend. And I told my mom's doctor during her visit, I was like, she is actually healthy. She's depressed. A lot of her ailments are because she's not taking care of herself, because she's depressed about the fact that she worked for 40 years and her bones and her joints won't let her be as mobile. So she'd be like, why is me and Nancy Pelosi the same age and she can still wear heels and I can't? Like my mother is angry that her age is finally actually stunting her free agency. So I do think there's a thing where aging feels beautiful and then you start to lose your free agency, then it doesn't feel beautiful anymore, right? Like, and I think that's why my view on aging has kind of shifted, because I realized some of it was a little ableist. Like, it's easy for me to feel good about aging when, like you, I'm walking around with a baby face and I'm frolicking with my friends in LA with my little backpack, you know, acting like a big little kid and traveling the world and do all these things that I want to do. It's easy to feel good about aging when you can still feel juicy and running around the streets. But what happens if you get sick? What happens if you have to sit still? What happens if you need aid? Like, my mom just started using her roller, but like, she fought for 6 months not to use it because to her, old ladies use that stuff. Like, why? She's like, why do I need that? My mind is so sharp. And so I'm now realizing that, like, yeah, aging feels good now because I haven't lost anything yet.
I mean, your mind, the challenge is your mind doesn't always match up with your body and what
Yeah,
your
her
body
mind is
can
40,
do,
but her body's 76.
depending on what you know, put the work in when you were growing. And I feel like I'm not really putting the work in that I should be putting in to be better when 70 is very different from 40s. Being
Yeah.
in your 70s, that's when things like really hip replacements, knee replacements. And I don't know, I feel like I need to work really hard in being present and living in this moment. You know, whatever comes at me, if I am blessed enough to live into my 70s and 80s, I will meet it with the best attitude I know. And I think if I work on my mindset and my attitude, I'll be okay. I'll adjust. I'll find things to do that I can do, that I enjoy doing. I think it's just being active, like trying to talk my
Yeah, I was
dad
about to say,
into
I don't think
staying
the 40s,
active. And yeah,
I don't think the 40s and 70s are separate. I think that what you do in the 40s dictates how your 70s look. And
exactly.
I think that's why I'm like, oh, I know that I'm my mother's child, and even the things I don't like about her, I probably do as well. So if me acting like this is going to lead to that, I got to make some tweaks. Like, I'm sure, have you looked at your parents at any time and be like, oh yeah, reminder to self, let me adjust this and this habit because I'm seeing visually with my parents, this is what it leads to if I don't nip it in the bud. Has that happened to you? Because it's been happening to me a lot lately.
A little bit. The bigger
Self-care
thing for
especially.
me, yeah, the bigger thing for me is seeing, as much as I try not to follow my parents, how they show up in me and what I do. That's been happening a lot, much more. And especially with my mothering, back to motherhood, like, I'm trying to intentionally not put things into my children that I feel have impacted me in a challenging way in adulthood. But
Mhm.
it creeps in because it was so normalized for me growing up. Um, yeah, I definitely, with mindset and like mental health, that is kind of what I'm trying to do now that I feel like my parents are not willing to. I mean, Caribbean, we don't do therapy. We don't do, go to Jesus, you
Go to
know.
Jesus.
It's like, go, pray on it. So, have somebody pray over you, lay hands on you. Don't talk about it. My dad is like, why don't we go pay somebody to talk about what they gonna tell me I don't already know? Even
Wait, you
medical
mentioned therapy
care.
to him and that was his reaction?
Yeah, even doctors now, he's like, I hate going to the doctor. What am I going to the doctor? They don't even do anything. Sometimes they don't touch me. They just ask me stupid questions.
My mom just said that yesterday, and I was like, are you serious? They
It's just
kept you
like they have
alive
to
last month.
ask questions to make sure you don't have the symptoms that predict other problems in the future. He's
Yeah.
like, whatever.
That is so infuriating to me because this whole week, and this is why I love that you're on this episode, because you understand what it's like to be living your life in your 40s and feeling like you're finally hitting your stride and your confidence is at an all-time high and you know who you are. And at the same time, your parents are yelling bullshit at every good thing that you're trying to introduce into their lives.
Yeah,
And you're like, I'm trying to keep
absolutely.
you alive and happy. Like, why are you fighting me on this?
Absolutely. And I mean, I really hope, like my dad always says, whenever God's ready to take me from this earth, I lived a long life. I'm 80, and I made it, I made it this
I
far.
made it this
So
long. I've been
if
here a
God
lot.
spare my life, that's fine. I don't need no doctor so he's already like written his future. Just trying to keep him happy. But I think being happy and
Yep.
breathing through things and choosing not to engage or be angry, or like my parents in road rage. They still both drive, thank
Wait,
God.
and how old is your mother?
My mother is 76,
So in her 70s and 80s, they're still having road rage?
but not road rage like external road rage. It's become internal because they know now. They watching the news. Everybody gets shot. Boo, boo, boo. Every time somebody winks at you wrong. right? And we shouldn't be laughing at that.
No,
It's
no, I'm laughing at your impersonation that your parents are watching the news and saying, let me shut the hell up. Like that's
yes,
good
but
policing.
in the car, like when I'm driving, like what the, these stupid, blah, 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 they're in their blood. I can see their blood pressure rising. I can see their
Yeah.
tension. That does things to your body. Your
Oh,
body's central
absolutely.
nervous system is not meant to be angry or tensed up that often throughout the day, and they're always in their car. And I'm just like, you can choose to just recognize you can't change the things about the people, the way they drive around you, but you can change your response to them. This is me saying this is what I'm not going to do when I'm 70 something. I'm not going to be yelling from my car and putting up my blood pressure for no good reason. But
Blood
yeah,
pressure is such an interesting thing in the Black community in particular, because I feel like the reason why
so
we have
bad.
such a high rate of blood pressure is because we have all this trauma in our DNA, right? Like there's this
Absolutely.
survival instinct, this fear in our bodies that creates a space that's a perfect breeding ground for blood pressure. Because between the food deserts, where it's hard to get high quality food without breaking the bank, the disparity in how much we
Washing
get paid,
lynchings.
right? So we're eating this cheap food because we're broke because of the disparities in how much we're getting paid. We have all this trauma that's unresolved. We don't think therapy makes any sense. It's just my talking in your face. And so, yeah, that's a perfect breeding ground for high blood pressure. My mother was in the car recently with an Uber driver, didn't say anything. And he had an incident where he could have had road rage and chose not to. And he was like, oh, wow, that was really irresponsible of them. Like he was being really cool. And out of nowhere in the back, I hear my mother say, fucking asshole. And I was like, Mom, you have
I
not
love how your mom drops swears and F-bombs. It's
yeah.
hilarious. Because her face, she's just be at peace, and all of a sudden,
Fucking
the lip
asshole.
turns up.
You fuck you in, like I caught her on the phone the other day and she's like, fuck you in the ass. And I was like, Mommy, who are you talking to? It was the telemarketers. She cusses them out. She whispers, swears at them. When
That's wrong.
I said, Mom,
Yes.
you can't do that. She's like, why? I was like, because it's actually just not good, right? So I think one of the things we're learning, all of us, is to be better than a more evolved version of our parents. And hopefully Thaddeus and Xavier will be more evolved versions of you and Kwame.
I hope
Now, here's the
so.
thing though, that's interesting. Earlier, you said that you identify as a mother, as a daughter, as a wife, and all those things are beautiful. My question though is, what's the balance of not only be identified to how you relate to others? Like, what's that balancing act of, I have these beautiful relationships that I want to honor, and also I am my own person, regardless of those relationships? Because I feel like there's this teetering that I've been doing lately between being being for the community and helping my family, but also respecting myself as an individual. And it's tricky, friend. Have you figured that out? Do you have any tips for us? How to just like,
Absolutely not. I haven't figured it out. I've been thinking about it because I know to be healthy and whole and happy, I need to figure out that balance. But
yeah,
in this moment with a newborn,
yeah. I mean, that may
there's
be,
nothing for me. There is no, one of the things with Thaddeus, I was able to nurse. He latched, and for those who don't know, latching is when the baby can attach to your breast and breastfeed. That doesn't come naturally to women all the time, and I don't think people know that.
my mom
And
said it didn't come natural to her at all, and I rejected her. I
and my
didn't.
mom too. My mom said it hurt too much, so she gave up. And I was like, okay, so I turned out okay. But it's a very amazing bonding experience with your child, and it's convenient because you walk around with these tools of feeding it. And Xavier is not latching yet. And I'm saying yet because I'm still
Mhm.
trying. And I'm, particularly for the plane ride to Africa, I need him to latch. And that means I'm very focused on breast milk and making sure, since I have the ability to make breast milk, which also milk, what all women cannot do,
Yeah.
that I give it to him. So I'm feeding him, and sometimes he'll take from a bottle. I pump the milk for 30 minutes every 3 hours
Ooh,
into
on your
sachet.
titties? That sounds exhausting,
Yes.
friend.
It's like I was thinking about cows the other day. I was like, breast pumps are probably the same as the cow milk thing that they
Yeah, it
do,
is.
the suction. Anyway, I'm pumping the milk for 30 minutes, and then I am feeding him, and he takes a long time. He grazes, he rolls. Infants sleep for like 20 hours a day. He closes his eyes, he opens his eyes. It takes an hour to feed him, and he's supposed to eat every 3 hours, starting on the beginning of the hour. So if he eats at 12 p.m., 1, 2, 3, he has to eat again at 3 p.m. So if I pump for 30 minutes, then I feed him for an hour, I only have 45 minutes to an hour to recover before I have to start all over.
Oh, hell no. Nah.
So that's been my life. That's why I don't have anything for my.
It'd be one thing if you were 20, but once you hit 40, that just sounds extra exhausting, friend.
And he's not sleeping through the night. So I'm up all night, and then I'm expected to, well, I'm not expected. I put that expectation on myself, but I expect myself to be able to operate somewhat during the day. But then I have to look for pockets of sleep. So it has to be 45 to an hour pockets, because then I have to prepare for the next feed cycle. It's a lot.
That sounds like hell. I'm not even gonna hold you. Nothing
But
about
if
that
he
sounds
could latch, I could take out one of those steps. And then it's not always like that. It's only in the beginning. Later they merge, and then they eat, 5 times a day and 4 times until they get to 3 times a day. But right about now, I can't. But you asked me living the balance. So one thing I've been thinking about is doing I like to travel, doing an annual trip. It's either a girls trip or a solo trip by myself.
I love that.
Without kids. Because my 40th birthday trip, my 40th birthday, 40th country trip, it was a girls trip, but it was 3 moms and none of us had our kids. And the first day I woke up in the morning and I was like, nobody's looking for me. Nobody's looking for me. I'm not responsible for anybody but myself. And then I went back to sleep. It was like, I can rest. I don't have to worry. And it felt so good and liberating. It's like, I need to do this every year. And of course, I haven't done it again since, you know. So I'd like to do something like that, or, some eat, pray, love. I love Indonesia. I've been to Indonesia, Bali. I love to go back to Bali by myself and just do like a spa, meditation, breathing, like all
Well,
of
if you
it.
go to Bali, let me know. We'll do it alone together then, because I went to Bali with the wrong person. It was a beautiful trip with the wrong person. And so it's been on my bucket list to redo Bali without that human being in my face. So Bali is actually high on my list of places that I need to do a do-over. I'm going to London next week. Nice. So I'm excited about the concert. That. Yeah, I'm going to London. Well, here's the thing. I was initially going to London for the Beyonce concert, which, by the way, accidentally speaking into existence a year before it happened, because I knew somebody associated with her who had told me last summer that the trip that she was going to kick off in Europe. So last summer I was like, hey, the best place to see Beyonce would be in London with the Black Brits, because they already love dance music. And so that feels like the best place internationally to go see it. And then unintentionally ended up accidentally getting tickets to London. And I now think I might stay longer, actually.
You should. London is so much fun. There's lots.
I've been to London before and I loved it, but I was there with other people. I think I want to do London solo. Like, I want to do a solo trip. One of my homegirls, shout out to Brit, she was supposed to come with me, but it was just too much last minute. And now I'm like, and she talked me into it. She was like, Blue, do not cancel this trip. You have been working for your family for so long. You're constantly putting other people first. Take a trip. And I was like, well, if I'm going to take a trip and it's for me, I want it to be more than a couple of days. So I actually think I might stay in London for like a week or two. Just run away from home for a little bit and wander off. Do you ever miss the complete autonomy of not having to be a wife and mother? Because I feel like those things are exalted for a reason, but they also come with a lot of baggage and a lot of expectation, especially on the female partner or the female presenting partner. Do you ever just sometimes wish you could have like a week of just being a city girl and just being selfish?
I asked my husband the other day, do you ever feel like running away?
Oh shit, you asked him that? First of all, that's a trap, Natalie. Stop asking that man questions like that you know gonna get him in trouble. Fellas, I'm gonna defend you here. Any wife asking her husband that after just having a newborn is setting him up. What did this poor man
I was asking him in order for him to say yes, to allow me to feel like I could say it.
No, that's not fair.
I know that's not feeling it, for manipulative and all the things, emotional intelligence bad. So, but I really, if I could just get up and not for a long, like not forever, just, disappear on people and just, do me, go for, a massage or do a day. But my breast would engorge with milk. I can't even leave for the day. I'm like literally biologically, physically attached to my child. Yeah. Actually, that's not true. I could leave with my pump and then just make milk whenever I felt like I needed to and not be physically with my child. But
you'd be so guilt-ridden, it wouldn't even be fun for you. But wait, don't pause. The audience is gonna be like, she didn't answer the question. How did he answer? How did he answer when you asked him that? Because you set this black man up. Yes. Oh, he said yes to your face.
Why wouldn't? I mean, we try to be honest with each other. And he's not always able to be honest with me because he's always worried about how I'm gonna feel. But I think he knew I was asking because that's how I was feeling.
Yeah.
And, because maybe I asked it like, "Don't you want to run a race?" I might have said it that way, which would have meant that I was leading to my talking about myself. But yeah, not because I don't love my children or my
Sure.
life, but you just need a break. And sometimes there is no space. Sometimes I'm wondering about when I'll have time to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
It's just it's just a lot. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think, and I didn't talk too much about the pregnancy. I don't know if you want to use the pregnancy stuff, but being able to have a baby is like a gift.
Yeah.
And not everybody has a chance or chooses or wants to do it, which is fine. But it's something I wanted to do. My first childbirth experience wasn't what I planned. I had a C-section, and so this time I really wanted to try to do it the way you watch it in the movies, which is not exactly that way. Called VBAC, vaginal birth after C-section, and to be able to pull it off in my 40s as
Yeah.
a woman that's considered overweight,
Mhm.
right? With doctors telling you at every stage and every visit you should just induce and have a C-section. It would be easier. There's all these different ways you could die. You could be hypertensive. There's all these there kind of things, which are
The
true.
medical racism that you experienced during your birth story, and that's a whole episode in
Mm.
itself, made me want to fight everybody at that hospital. And the way that Black women and the way that fat Black women in particular, because how they think of us in their heads, when we are trying to have a baby and we have the nerve to do it over the age of 35, the lack of compassion that comes ironically from the very people who need to be there for us during our most vulnerable moments is infuriating. Like, as your friend, I actually cried after we talked about it, because I was like, the idea of you being treated like that. Sorry, I'm not gonna cry. I've been so emotional lately. But the idea of
Wow.
you being treated like that during your most vulnerable moment, as somebody who loves you, it made me so angry.
I just want all of your listeners to know something I didn't know before. Sometimes you're brought up to feel like you have to listen to everything the doctors and the nurses tell you, but
Yeah.
you have agency, you have power, you have choice, and you can choose not to. I changed my OB halfway through my pregnancy because I didn't feel safe with that person. I didn't feel like the person was listening to me.
Yeah.
I created and I built a Black girl magic team. I had a Black woman doula, and I live in Boston. It's hard to find Black people in period, or Black doctors, especially Black OBs. And she was amazing, and she heard me, and she saw me for who, and she had been through similar experiences that I was going through. I happen to have Black nurses on my team from the labor and delivery, and so I was so geeked. I took a picture. I was like, we might never see this again.
Oh yeah, the picture of the four of them at the thing. That
All
was
of them,
beautiful.
all of that. I was like, my birth team. I felt so that when that doctor came at me and started telling me how I needed to have a C-section at 10 centimeters dilated, I was like, no, I think I'm pushing at this point. You know, I had done, and between that and your candle, because I had done a lot of work with the indigenous candle and
Girl, I've made a candle,
manifesting
so
a
many
good
candles for
childbirth
you.
process.
And by the way, thank you for trusting me for doing spiritual work for you, because pregnancy is such a tender time. I had that candle
Mhm.
on the altar with my aunt's energy for like a week after I made it, because I just wanted some extra juju on it. So
Mhm.
I'm honored that you trusted me in that way, and I'm also just kind of really proud of you, because I remember us when we were little kids and how badly you wanted the life that you're currently living, how badly you wanted to travel and to meet a good person and to have kids, and literally everything on your list. How does that
Girl,
feel?
it feels amazing. And it feels like, what else? What else is next? Because I keep creating, and I'm not like sweating myself or anything or trying to talk big. It's more so I set goals, I work really hard to them, and then I reach them, and I'm like, oh my goodness, where's the rest of my list? I need to make a new list. So now I'm
Yeah.
in this place of what next? What do I want to be in for the rest of my 40s into my 50s? What do I want to do for my family? These days I've been thinking about like wealth. How do I build wealth?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be a star at this point. At least I don't think so.
No, why not?
No,
Says who?
maybe I will. I mean, I haven't been looking for that. I'm more thinking about how I can get money to make money for me, and not
Yeah.
only live in this kind of work for salary or work for hourly lifestyle. And so that's one of the things I've been thinking about a lot. But being able to reach goals feels amazing. It's really hard.
Mhm.
I doubt myself a lot. You know, even though I'm in a position where I have to be confident and, you know, guide others, I still have imposter syndrome. I still have
You have
moments of
imposter syndrome, really?
self-doubt. Sometimes, yeah. I
Oh.
mean, I am in leadership in a country and in a position that's usually white men.
Mm.
And I have, you know, I happen to have a white man that reports to me. He's wonderful. And when I go into rooms with him, with, you know, ministry leaders of countries or country leadership, they always look to him like he's the boss. And it's me. But I expect that because that's all they know. I mean, you know, Africa and colonization and, you know, white men lead stuff. They don't expect a black woman. Black women raise kids, cook, you know.
So you're doing all this fancy international affairs stuff, and you're the big boss, the big bitch in the room, and you walk in with a subordinate who happens to be a white man, and they just
Ordinance,
optically
that word.
assume that he's your superior. And
Often,
I'm intentionally
and
using that language because that's how they're thinking about it. That's exactly how they're thinking about it.
yeah, often. And what's great about him is he knows that. And I don't
Mm.
know if it's great. It's almost sometimes he overcompensates, like, this is my boss. She runs the agent, you
He
know, she
starts genuflecting like and
yes.
curtsying like you're the queen of
And
England.
I'm like, you don't have to do that, you
Why
know,
not?
because I think, and this is one of those things I've decided not to be mad about. And
Uh,
I've decided to like find humor in it. And
I
so
think
I
there's
let
humor
the
in him
charade
curtsying and hopping on one leg like coming to America. I
I
think
let the charade go on because sometimes people will talk to you differently when they don't think you're the boss
that's
from when
true.
they do. So you can learn a lot about people and who they really are. And so when you tell them who you are, it's a surprise. And they're like, oh crap, what have I just what have I shared with this person that I thought was an underling? So yeah, I feel good though. I feel good. At the same time, I'm looking for more. I'm searching for more. I'm trying
Absolutely.
to figure out what's next.
There's a thing that I call divine dissatisfaction, where you are grateful for everything that you have, but understand that you're living at a 9 and there's always room for improvement. I don't believe in being a 10. Like if I'm rating something from 1 to 10, it's really 1 to 9. Because my thing is, once I hit a 10, it's time to die, right? Like ain't nothing
Yeah,
left to
you
do.
stop trying.
There's nothing to do. And I think also too, we were talking earlier about how we are living these brave lives that our parents could probably not even conceptualize back in their day. And we've kind of become our mother's keepers. Like I feel like when you talked about how your relationship with your mother improved, I think there's a part of our parents, our mothers in particular, who probably admired the courage that we had that they didn't.
Perhaps.
Because when I was over your house and your mom was there was this beautiful look on her face of just like pride. Like
Really?
yeah. And I know you didn't catch it because you know you had this newborn looking at you like you were a milk machine and a 5-year-old doing hands and flipping out the thing. And your poor husband's like, I haven't slept in 3 weeks. This is my life. Like it was a lot happening in our room.
All of that is so true.
I've
I don't
officially
know if my
become the
mom
auntie.
is.
I love this.
Yes, please. We need as many aunties as we can get. I don't know if my mother's ever articulated it to me in that way, but I do feel like my parents are proud of me. And
Absolutely.
I'm grateful for that because I want more for myself. I feel like I should have figured out a way to be rich right now and paid off their mortgage or like got that, you know, but that's not, I know that's not my job and they have actually told me that's not my job. But I feel like that is one of the definitions I have for myself for
Me too.
success, to be able to take care of my parents so they don't have to worry. But
Mm-hmm.
being that I turned out okay and you know, I did the things I was supposed to do, stayed in school, you know, waited after marriage. I mean, there's so much judgment with all these statements, but these are the things that our parents value and say this is how things should be done.
Yeah.
I think I would have been fine if I had a baby in my 20s, and it probably have even been easier to have somebody that can wipe their own behind while I'm doing all this work on the other side. But everything happens for a reason,
I
right?
agree.
So there's no shoulds, right? No buts or shoulds.
There's no buts or
It's
shits.
the
It's
right
what
time.
it
It's
should
the
be.
divine order. And my parents, I know my parents are proud of me, even though they might I've never heard them say it
I
out
saw.
loud. I can
I'm
feel
telling you,
it. I
friend.
can
I
feel
saw
it.
it all over her face.
Actually, they have said it. My dad says it. Yeah, they both have said it before. I lie.
You know what's so funny? When I'm around my friends who have like husbands and kids, there's a pang of shoulda, woulda, coulda that I expected that I don't feel. It's so interesting how you can love and appreciate something and recognize what everybody has their own different path. I really one time had a dream about me, because I've been engaged. I didn't tell y'all when it happened because I was being secretive. When Antonio went away to Atlanta and he was my everything, like we spent 24/7 together. I started dating somebody in Philly and got engaged, and he was Muslim and he went to temple, and he was a nice guy, and he proposed to me, and I just kind of said yes because I figured like, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. And one day he was just talking about like how he wanted to have babies immediately, and by the time, and I started imagining like, by the time I'm 30, if this all happens, I'll be married with like 2 or 3 kids by 30. And I've never left my mother's home. I've never experienced life. I've never even traveled out of the country at that point. I had never even left the country. And so there was all this life that I had to live. And so there's these 2 bizarre versions of me. Like actually there's 3. Me, if I had gotten married, and I would be divorced by now. I know for a fact that anybody I picked at 21, I would have divorced by now. Or if I had gone the route of doing it in my 30s and early 40s. And then there's this version of me who's like, I've lived a lot of life. And now anything that I do, I'm making the choice from a fully informed, healed place. And I do think that you and I represent 2 alternative routes that a lot of women aren't told. We're not told that you can wait till your 30s or even your 40s, right? Like you waited to your 30s. I clearly waited to my 40s, and like, we're good. And
so good. I think it's
we're
better
so good.
for me
We're
that
better
way.
than
For
good.
me. Yeah, absolutely. I think because as you were talking, I was like, yeah, but I waited to my late 30s or mid 30s
Yeah.
to get married. And I've put a lot of value on life and culture experience and travel and world. I had already probably hit up 20 countries before I met my husband. And so I felt
Yeah.
like I've seen the world, I can settle down kind of. But then
Because
I
you
want to
waited later. You waited much later than the norm. And there's a free agency in that a lot of women don't see as an option.
But one of my criteria was that, I want to keep I want to keep seeing the world. I want to keep having these experiences. So if you're going to be down with me, then you're going to have to be on this plane with me, So he knew what he was signing up for. And I mean, I am happy, I am good, and it's still work and it's hard. And there's many moments of unhappiness and frustration. And, being married is work. And
Being married in 2023, friend, child.
yeah, there's so much like external pressures on you.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot of work. And, I just think I'm happy that I am in a committed relationship and I don't have to live this life on my own. Because
Mhm.
as you know, I'm still working on figuring out how to be on my own, which I should do in my marriage as well, right? You should have moments when you're together with your spouse and moments when you're on your own and taking care of yourself and exploring and self-care. And um as much as I'm working on that, I'm still happy to have a person
And you have a good person too. Kwame
that's
is such a
honest with me.
sweetheart. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a
he is
sweetheart.
wonderful. So I think it's constant work. We have to continue to work together, grow together, learn together in order to complete the journey.
If you're this tired with a partner who loves you, even on his bad days, and wants to be with you, can you imagine the people who are with partners who they can't say that about?
I have
I
never
can't even imagine being with a vagabond, a philanderer, and
with
having to
part
do life.
I've been thinking a lot about lately, not even being with a bad partner, but being single. And
Hmm.
as a mother, I have so many friends that have raised beautiful, capable, amazing children as single mothers.
So it
And
sounds
I big
exhausting
up,
as superheroes.
yeah, it is a superhero to be a mother, period. To be
Yeah.
a mother and do most of it on your own. I mean, of course you have a family unit, a village is helping you, but it's different. And I can't, I just big them up and bow down and praise them every day, knowing that they were able to do all that they did, you know, on their own for the most part. So I can imagine that being with a bad person. I don't think I can. I think I would well, I'd like to say I would walk away, but now sitting here with 2 kids, I don't know. It takes a lot of thought to walk away when you've invested. If it's when it's more than just you. If
Yeah.
it's just me, I could walk. I think I could walk away. Part of me says I could walk away, but then part of me is like, well,
I
marriage
know
is
you, and
comfortable
as your
too.
friend, I think you would stay
That
a
might be
little
a
bit
lie.
long. No, I don't think you're lying. I think you would stay a beat, but you would eventually walk away.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
your
know.
survival instinct is very strong, and you tend to, even when you hem and haw, do what's gonna make you happy.
I really want, you never know what's going to happen in marriage. People change and evolve. I really want my marriage to work. I
Yeah,
don't know what it's going to be like in 10 years when we're maybe going through different things. We're trying to put it, I'm really happy to know that we're both committed and to working on it
that's
continuously and
major,
putting in the
friend.
work. And so that gives me hope that, because there's just so much bad stories about marriage in the world, especially Americans. Um, but yeah, I feel like exploring the world together is helpful, and working and knowing that we have work to do constantly is helpful as well.
I have some
Um,
questions around that because I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions, maybe rapid fire. Number one, have you ever cheated on any relationship you've ever been in?
what is define cheat?
Anything you wouldn't do in front of your partner that breaks the covenant.
Lord.
That's what cheating is. It's
I don't have a memory of ever cheating.
Don't do that, Bill
Because
Clinton.
that
That I
doesn't
don't
mean that
recall.
that doesn't
Girl,
mean
first you
I
don't
mean I
remember me
am in the
naming your baby.
diplomat
Now you don't
space.
remember this.
But like I literally I'm trying to think of
By the way, this is why Geminis are known as the most hated sign.
probably
When Geminis answer
probably.
questions like this, you give everybody high blood pressure. I'm your friend, and even I'm looking at you crazy. Not that I recall. You said probably.
I mean, well, you said anything you wouldn't do. There's lots of things I wouldn't do in front of my partner.
No. Let's not be a Gemini right now. Let's bring it back. Cheating is anything that you know that your partner would be upset if they saw you do it, and so you're doing it without them around, and that breaks an agreement that's implied or direct.
I know I've never done it with a sexual act, but I've like grinded or danced in a club on somebody, I
I
don't know.
mean, what was it? Was it
And
with
enjoyed myself.
was it with flirtatious intentions?
Yes,
Oh yeah, that's okay. That's yeah. You wouldn't do that in front of your partner.
but not my husband, not my current partnership.
Would you ever stay with your partner if they cheated on you?
I used to say quick no to this one, and now I don't know.
That's honest.
I I I would say probably not, because even if I stayed, I would be eternally angry or
Agreed.
not able to accept or trust in the same way again. Um, I would, if my partner came to me, and I've been thinking more about like open relationships and like all of the different
That was my
designs of
next question,
ways
but don't
some
jump
people
ahead.
do things. Oh, okay.
But since you
All
already brought it there,
instructions.
would you be open to an open relationship?
I don't know.
Girl, the look on your face said no. Your face got real funky. Like, no.
I would appreciate that he would come to me and talk about that it was his desire to do that. And I would try to consider it somehow, but I don't think I wouldn't want to share him with somebody else.
Yeah.
It just feels, I don't want to say nasty because I feel like there's judgment in that.
It's unnatural to you because natural is subjective.
It's
So it's unnatural to you.
it's just kind of like this when I think about these acts, you are sharing and giving a part of your spirit and your body and your everything, and to use that in multiple locations, it just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, and it's so funny.
Multiple
The strong, unwavering stance that I've taken on this show is that I think polyamorous people who say that monogamy is unnatural and monogamous people who say polyamorous are natural are both full of shit, because natural is subjective and works between you and your partner. So it's very self-aggrandizing to ever, I don't care which side of the coin you are, to act like your way is the only way. And so I think if
I
you
recognize my way is not the only way. It's just
yeah,
for
so I'm
me.
happy you didn't. Yeah, so what's natural for you is okay, and I get really angry when I hear people on either side say the other side's not natural, because who the fuck are you, like, to tell somebody how they get down? But if you were to ever perceive like, God, I could see myself being open to an open relationship, and then your partner said, no, nah, I'm still monogamous over here, could you see yourself like combating that urge to invest in the relationship? If your views ever evolved on monogamy and you were not allowed to act on that evolution, because that's what happens a lot of time when men say, they think they're open is that they pretend to be monogamous because society has told them that they have to be. Then they realize, God, I love her too much to cheat. God, so how do I have my cake and eat it too? And then they confess, hey, I think I actually am poly, and accidentally entered a monogamous relationship thinking I could change. And then the partner has the opportunity to be like, okay, I can either re-up with a new agreement or walk away. And some people bite down on that urge. There was a show called Good Trouble on Freeform, where a girl was in a monogamous relationship and then told her partner, I think I might be poly. I want to explore it. And he said, all right, then. And then he left and like went to Africa. Like he moved to, he was like, best of luck to you and your
I can relate to that.
That's why I brought out that example. That sounds like you. You'd be like, oh, you want to have many wives? Okay, nice. I'm going to go back to Sierra Leone.
Speaking of many wives, I've lived in a community that is polygamous. Remember when I was a Peace Corps volunteer, I was living in a polygamy. They had 2 or 3 wives, and it didn't seem to work the majority of the time. Like publicly it worked because it was tradition and it was accepted and it was culture. But when I would talk to wives one-on-one, you know, when they knew I wouldn't repeat what they said, they're like, no, I can't stand wife 1, or you know, wife 2, or he be going over there.
17.
Yeah. And HIV is like moving you know, in the early 2000s, it was a lot of HIV. So if you're one man, you're infecting, you know, several women, and even some children, you know, past through childbirth. So
I'm happy you brought that up. I'm happy about that because I think polyamory or monogamy done because it's tradition and not because it's how you naturally want to do things is always dangerous. That's why I keep on saying both sides are full of shit when they act like their way is the only way, because there's some societies where polyamory and one man having many wives is the norm, but some of those wives are monogamous people. And then there are America or places over here where we're saying monogamy. Some of them people are both polyamorous and they're both lying to each other. And so I think—
And then you have Caribbeans and even some African countries that are all of that, and they just call it something different.
Second family.
Like, yeah, second family.
I'm a second family.
I'm paying. There's an apartment over here, the main house, the apartment for the woman that everybody knows about, but nobody talks about. Like, that's the same. Yeah. I'd rather it be out in the open and honest than, you know, and I never am surprised or disrespectful of different arrangements for different people, because I know people in probably most of these arrangements and they're living their fullest life in the best way. The only
arrangements that I clap for are the ones that are working. Like, and whatever arrangement you got,
different people.
Yeah, if it's working, I'm gonna mind my goddamn business. Now, if you're miserable, we can talk, because now even you don't like it, so it's time to keep it, right? But if an arrangement is working for all parties, I mind my business. Like, whatever it is, I mind my business. Would you ever consider doing how do I say it, playing with a partner on vacation? I once dated a guy in LA, actually, who, this was right before the pandemic, and he was like, hey, you know, I could see myself on vacation with my girl after we've been stable, like maybe, you know, doing a threesome, like away, so it's a complete stranger and we're on vacation and it's isolated. And for a couple of years, I thought that was a little hot. And now I'm just like, well,
the world is small. I find people in different countries. I've met you in Kenya, and I'm seeing you in, you know, Switzerland.
You're mad that Swiss Bay might actually be somebody connected to your circle.
I mean, well, that was kind of the explanation you used, like, oh, you'll never see this person again, it's far away. No, nothing is far away. Everything is one plane ride or a couple plane ride connections away,
or some Wi-Fi Google searching away.
But yes, exactly. But the question, would I do it? I don't know. It would have to be a lot of discussion. I won't close the door fully on anything without discussion, but the discussion may end in no. I will not do that.
Okay, you're being a quintessential Black woman right now. We can discuss it before I tell you no. Yeah, we should have discussed it. Yeah, let's talk about everything.
No. That doesn't mean I will say no, but yeah, I feel like, and that's also about like sexual freedom, and I didn't learn that growing up. You know, I'm still a little bit, I will admit that about myself. I'm open to learning, and especially with my partner. But to think about extending that to another person, I don't know. It's taken me this long to build this trust with my partner. So yeah, I feel like I gotta take it slow.
Yeah, there's so many things that I said I wouldn't do that I've done. And sometimes I'm happy I did it. Sometimes I was like, nah, I was right the first time. This is whack. And so when I look at your face, this is how I felt. The last time I went to a play party, I remember it was just limbs everywhere. And I was like, yeah, I gotta go.
Does
I
it
just
smell?
no,
I
actually, people
smell
have better hygiene at play parties.
I've
Like
always just been curious, like all that
people at play
nakedness.
parties and strippers have better hygiene than the average person, actually, because you have to. When you don't know who's gonna have their face down there, you actually have to be extra fresh and clean at all times. So the hygiene is actually better in the kink community than it is in the vanilla community. Much better, actually. Oh yeah, so vanilla is anybody who does like regular conventional, society accepted things. In the kink communities are people who live on the fringe. And I dibbled and dabbled in the kink community for about 10 years. I know that sounds like a lot of dibbling and dabbling. And I was like, yo, y'all wash everything a lot better. Like men in the kink community have better hygiene than cis het, like because they have to, right? But one of the things I realized was I was experimenting because I wanted to make sure that there was no part of me that was not being honored. And I explored and found out that I was vanilla.
I mean, I'm always open to learning, and because I don't want things to go stale,
Yeah.
So we don't want to do the same thing. So we often talk about, okay, what can we do? How can we spice this up? What can we?
Have you ever taken shrooms together?
No, I've never really done hard.
No, shrooms are not hard drugs, love. Don't say
Oh,
that.
is it?
No.
Oh, I don't even know what a hard. Like I don't know. I'm so square.
Hard drugs like crack. You know what I mean?
Oh,
heroin.
I don't even know the spectrum.
Okay, the spectrum that I subscribe to is that marijuana, shrooms, psychedelics. Like marijuana is soft.
I know marijuana is not hard. It's just
politically. Well, shrooms have the exact same effect as just marijuana on marijuana, right? Like if a joint smoked itself, that's shrooms. And so all that stuff that you use, especially for a spiritual practice, that's not hard. It gets hard when you're doing like crack cocaine and heroin and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Or even if you're doing opioids. So I'm scared of drugs.
I'm scared of opioids. They tried to give me that after the C-section, and I was just like, I was thinking about the people on methadone mild. The first, I only had one C-section. The second one was vaginal.
No, what opioid would they try to give you?
Oxy.
Oh, wasn't that supposed to make you feel like everything's okay?
I don't know. I was scared because we have the methadone mild, we call it, in Boston, and people walk around like zombies and they get hooked. And I feel like as a Gemini, it would be easy for me to get hooked on something.
No, listen to your
introduced to it once. And so I said, I just take Tylenol, I'm gonna tough it out,
Okay, not to be the quintessential tourist talking about zodiac signs, and this audience is very trained in knowing that we talk about the zodiac during these interviews. I'm the quintessential tourist where the only things that I really get addicted to are luxury, sex, and food. Like I have so much alcohol in my house from parties. I have copious amounts of types of legal soft drugs, guys. They're all legal in the state of California in my home. And when people leave and come back, everything is still the same. The jar is where you left it. You know what I mean? Like I'm surrounded by those things all the time and feel no thought about consuming them in a large amount. But when it comes to luxury, like first class seats or some good sex or a shopping trip, then my addictive personality or a good meal, that's when my addictive personality comes out.
I love that too. And not for nothing. I mean, alcohol, I think, is my only, thing in my house. And I don't have the same interest in drinking that I did in my 20s. I drink for social, and it's mostly wine now, but even wine makes me sleepy. So I have to limit.
I went to wine country for my birthday and I was not like, I was so tired.
Sleepy.
We rented a house in wine country and everybody was over 35. I think me, my friend Richard and his wife Monique, us being up at 11:30, we were the last ones up. Everybody was knocked out by 10 o'clock.
I think that's part of why you're supposed to spit it out, honestly. Drunkenness and sleepiness, because wine is just to have that powerful. But yeah, I think I haven't tried any of these things. I don't know. I've not even.
I would highly recommend. I can bring you something next time I'm in Boston. I would highly recommend you guys get a
I'm not allowed for my job.
No, you're not allowed.
This is public.
I know you're not allowed right now because you're breastfeeding, but a galaxy light and some shrooms is a form of couples therapy. No, seriously, because the shrooms make you feel like you're ethereal and your body is light.
This is my listening, trying to understand face. I know you're interpreting my face. So
I'm telling you, a galaxy light and some shrooms could be a night. And it's so funny because I have a couple of friends who've confessed to me that they've done the same thing. I thought that was my thing. A lot of folks have realized that just lying on the floor and making like a picnic in the living room and turning on some galaxy lights so it feels like you're outside watching the stars, and then smoking a J or popping a low dose of shrooms and just feeling your body and having great conversation with the person that you love. It's actually it's not that hardcore, actually. It's actually kind of sweet and compassionate and The sex is also very good. So if you ever on the low, we don't have to say it on camera, want me to bring you a supply of legal shrooms, let me know. I don't know if they're gonna look at you funny when you go back to Africa. They're like, what are these chocolates? With the little
shrooms are in chocolate.
No, you can. The kind that I would give you, because you're extra vanilla, would probably be the shroom chocolates, because those don't
Extra vanilla. I'll take it.
But would you be open to, if your partner ever, and the reason why I'm asking these questions is because I think a lot of time people desexualize mothers. And so I intentionally wanted to have a conversation about motherhood, daughterhood, all that stuff, and then talk about fucking, right? Because mothers be fucking, y'all. How do y'all think y'all got here? And I think a lot of folks see it, they be like, why are you wearing that? You're a mother. And I was like,
I don't believe in that. I don't feel like my dress code changed because I became a mother. I still want to live a life. I want to live a whole life. I'm trying to figure out right now, before we leave the States, like how we can slide in some nights out and, without the kids, and get cute and pretend we, remember we have a life and we're whole people outside of our children, just for a few hours, if nothing else.
Well, you guys have the same birthday, yeah? You and Kwame have the same birthday?
So
as a birthday gift, I will be in town at the end of June.
Coming?
I'll be in town at the end of June. I will watch the kids for a night for you guys as a birthday gift. I'm being serious. You know I mean it.
I'll take it.
You already know that me and I love that baby.
Thaddeus.
Me and Thaddeus.
Auntie Blue.
We like playing games on the phone. I am such a child.
I was like, I was talking about you yesterday. I was like, you remember Auntie Blue? He's like, yeah, I think so. I was like, the one that every time you ran around said you were in your feelings. He's like, oh yes. I remember. Running like, oh, he's processing his feelings through movement.
But it's true though. So for the audience, to give you guys context, Natalie's son, I very quickly realized that whenever he had a strong emotion, he would hit the ground running. He would just start running because he had to process how he was feeling. And so I gave him a really sincere compliment, and his face lit up, and then he got so overwhelmed by emotion, he just started running. Instead of saying thank you, he's adorable. Like, what? And then he's so adorable. He started running. And so I was like, oh no, this is how he processes his feelings. Like a lot of athletes will tell you, like when they were going through stuff with their families and they were younger, being at the court, that's how they got their feelings out. So it's not actually acknowledged enough, I think, especially in young Black men, that sometimes you have to be physical when you're overwhelmed by your feelings. And I love that your son got to hear me constantly affirming that, because he might have judged, like, I don't know why I'm running, but I feel like I need to run now.
I don't think he's judging himself at all.
I don't either, because he was him. He does
not care about what anybody else is talking about. I try to keep him active. He's really like soccer or football everywhere else in the world except America.
Yeah.
So keep him running. Yeah, that's a good point though. That's a good observation.
And it's healthy. Once you have the context for it, then you can be like, oh, he's running because he's overrun by emotion right now. As opposed to back in the day, oh, he's just a bad child. He can't sit still. God, they got so much wrong back in the day. They got so much wrong. Now,
secretly in my head, I'm thinking about, well, maybe if he's always running, that he can overcome this kind of generational obesity of my family by staying active. I think about that all the time, trying not to, mom him and let him eat what he needs to, but also stop eating, on his own. That's what they say is healthiest.
Pause for a quick second. I'm gonna hit pause because I think I realized that I wasn't charging, and I want to just pop up. Let me see.
Put in your plug.
Oh, wait a minute. Cancel. I think I accidentally hit. Yeah, my plug just came out.
Wait, or did you stop?
All right, we're back. My laptop is charging because I didn't want to lose that point. It's so interesting how you mentioned how hopefully him being active means that he can combat the obesity that kind of runs generational obesity, because a part of me wondered, there was some show about how a mother was being problematic in the way that she was dealing with her daughter, and then you came to find out later it's because she was fat herself and she was internalizing all the pain she felt from being fat and was unintentionally shaming her daughter. And so part of me wonders, if you are a former fat kid now having a child, how would you feel if your baby did show up obese? Like, what if Xavier just ends up being big boned? Like, how would you be triggered by that? Because I think even me,
probably.
Yeah. Would you feel like it was
unfortunately? I don't even know what I do. I'm still working hard trying to prevent it, making sure to normalize natural, healthy food and have them crave that instead of sugar and processed. And, I always think about my parents. They were doing the best they could They
Yeah.
are very Caribbean, Central American, Latin American. The food that we ate contradicted the goals that we have for our body on a
Mm.
daily basis. And so for me, it's all about food and exposing them to good food and trying to keep them active, making sure a sport is a mandatory activity. You can pick which sport it is, but I want you to be out there having fun and moving and make movement and a normalized activity in your life so that you do it. My activity was music, violin, piano. I was doing these things, but I wasn't moving. And I think if I was, it might have been different. Yeah, but I don't know what I would do if I would still love him very much. There's this book I read, The Body Is Not an Apology.
Yeah, that book's been mentioned to me so many times recently.
I wept because I saw myself
Yeah.
in because I didn't recognize how much trauma, all the diets and the comments and I didn't recognize that I wasn't wearing color. There was for most of my teenage life into my adulthood, till I met my husband, really, I was wearing dark colors, a lot of black, because my mother would tell me how that makes me look slim or that,
Mm.
protects your figure or whatever. I would never wear horizontal stripes, God forbid. And my boyfriend at the time was like, why don't you ever wear, because he's West African,
They
of West
love
African
color.
descent. He had these lime green pants I used to hide because I was like, please don't wear those out. And
Oh,
he
that's
would
why you
wear
don't
them
like
just to
neon.
spite
Okay,
me.
that's coming back. Okay.
And he every color outfit I had when I started wearing color, he bought for me. I would
Oh,
never buy it for myself. And he would tell me that we have a visitor. And they would
that's
tell him
behind you. Little shadow
Thaddeus.
in the back.
Yeah, Thaddeus gonna say hi to Auntie Blue.
Hi, Thaddeus. Look at you. This is the first time I've had a baby on the pod.
He's recovering from his allergies. This
Oh,
eye.
I feel your pain, babe. I feel your pain.
But yeah, he said I was beautiful in these bright colors, and nobody had ever done that for me before because I never wore them to allow them the opportunity to do. And so it definitely what the experience you go through with your parents definitely impacts what you do with your kids. But I'm trying to make sure my kids don't feel the shame. I don't
Yeah.
think my mother was trying to make me feel shame, but now I connect what happened to what made me feel shame, and I'm trying to avoid doing that.
That's dope. I think it's so interesting too, because people don't talk about this. You don't just get fat from food or activity. Sometimes it's hormonal, right? Like for me, I gained 60 pounds after my aunt died because of the stress hormone cortisol. My cortisol levels were so high that I was gaining weight from trauma, not from food. And so I'm like, if I had a daughter who had an anxiety disorder, because that runs in my family, we're very anxious people. If my daughter had an anxiety disorder and was holding on to weight from that, and the food and whatever wasn't enough, or what if she had PCOS? What do you do when you can't gently lifestyle change your child and you just have to deal with their body being a reflection of the body that you used to judge yourself, right? And I would like to hope and think that would make them feel beautiful. Because I think I'm at a
Yeah,
place where I
love
do
on
that.
them.
Yeah, just love on them. Because my mom, I will say this, the one thing that not the one thing, but one of the things she got right that I don't even think she realized she was doing, when I had that eating disorder and fluctuate 100-pound different per year. Like if you look at me in high school, I was fluctuating. There was 100-pound difference every 6 months. So that's a drastic change in either direction, right? And when I was thinner and if I was happy, she'd be like, oh, honey, you look so sexy. And if I lost any weight, she'd be like, oh, you look sexy. Because my mother thinks sexy is a compliment. I don't know what that's about. And then if I gained a little weight, she'd be like, oh, your hair looks nice. Like she would just find different places to compliment me. She's like, why don't you wear more color? Like this color looks so good. You look good in hot pink. You look good in chartreuse. And so I think because my mom never once fat shamed me, when I was like 38 and she once said, oh, you're getting big. I was like, bitch, I've been talking about on all these platforms that you're the one person who's what the hell? But I realized at that point she was in her 70s and I think she was starting to lose the ability to keep.
There's no nuance in the 70s. There's no political correctness. There's just get to the point. Don't worry
For
about how anybody
70
feels about
years,
it.
this lady never said anything fat phobic to me. And so when I was damn near 40, she's like, oh, you look a little big. Have you been drinking water? I was like, wait a minute.
If only water was the solution to
And I was like
everything.
on Hollywood Unlocked or some big platform talking about how she's never done this to me. And I was like, hey, I had the Pikachu face like, bitch, you just made me a liar. But you know what's so interesting? She has so much grace that I'm not gonna hold that against her. And it just goes to show your parents are human.
They are.
They're human.
I'd like to think people are always doing the best. There's a Brene Brown quote, people are always doing the best they can, or just assume that, that's how I try to go into it. And definitely my parents, I know were doing, because as a parent, I don't know everything. There was one day Thaddeus was at the table. He asked me a question. I said, I do not know. He got angry at me. He's like, Mommy, what do you mean you don't know? You know everything. I said,
No, I don't.
no, don't get it twisted. I learn every day just like you. And I had like busted a bubble. He just assumed that and I remember thinking my parents knew everything until one day I woke up and realized they didn't. And now this whole thing we talked about earlier about generation and changing in our age and our aging parents, it's like you become the parent as the child.
Yeah.
And they ask you things that they know how to do, but they ask you because it would just be easier if you did it for them, or they forgot how to do it, and it just blows my mind. Yeah, but it's the circle of life.
The circle of life is very humbling, and that's probably the name of this episode, because I feel like we've been talking about the circle of life the entire time. And I think number one, it's revolutionary for parents to tell their kids that they don't know things and that they're sorry.
Important. Yeah.
A lot of parents don't know how to apologize to their kids. And I feel like you're one of those parents who knows how to do that, which I think is so amazing to watch. It makes me so proud of you, watching you mother in that way, because having grown up with you and seen you while you were in those traumas, and then seeing how differently you're parenting your kids, like sitting back, I'm like, oh shit, look at evolution doing its thing. Like, that's amazing.
It's not automatic. I read a lot. I follow a lot of positive parenting blogs and Instagram. And, I don't know everything. I ask questions, but I also reflect on what I feel, what I felt, what I know to be true, and what makes me feel good. Because kids are ultimately human.
They're baby adults.
They're
Like,
big
they're grown in their heads, yeah.
I probably talk to my children like they're too much, like too adult, like trying to filter out the adult stuff, but I never baby talked to Thaddeus. And I like to think that's why his vocabulary is so good. I would use big words. He's like, what that
I don't
mean?
maybe talk to him either. We were having a full discussion while we were
yes, you were. Yes, you were. And I think that makes a difference. It helps because your kids will rise to the expectations you set for them.
Yeah.
And my expectations for my children are limitless. Like they can do whatever they put their mind to. And so I have to nurture that as their parent.
Nurturing is such an interesting word to use because, nurture meant a lot. It meant being bossy and pretending to know everything. And then when you would get something wrong, instead of saying to your kid, I'm sorry, you say, you hungry? That's how mothers used to, we used to apologize to you back in the day. They'd be like, you hungry? Like, lady, you just cussed me out. And I don't even think you got it right. You just gonna wait a couple of hours and offer me food? I'm gonna eat it because I'm hungry. Like, so you hungry?
I've seen some of those memes, how Black parents apologize.
You hungry? Okay, so since we're talking about the circle of life, I wanted to end on the note. Well, there's two notes I want to end on. First of all, I had a moment yesterday while I was pulling out from Boston, because I was thinking about this episode, and I was thinking about how, you're in this space of you're moved back to America specifically to have a baby. And the minute that you are ready, you're moving right back to Africa to do all this international amazing work that you're doing, and how much strength it takes to go to a different continent. Like, I live across the country, you're going to a different continent with aging parents. And I was like, well, if Natalie can go to Africa with aging parents, I don't have to feel guilty about flying back to LA. But then I started thinking, and I'm using but intentionally, because this immediately negated that thought. I was like, when my aunt passed away, I didn't know it was going to be the last time I saw her, right? So, like, what if I don't know how much time I have with my mom? And I said, God, just give me 10 more years. Just give me a decade to, like, show her that all the stuff that she invested in me. And I started bargaining with God as we were about to take off. Like, just give me 10 more years with her. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, I can make this wish, but I have no control. And Natalie, I just started sobbing in my seat. Like, I just thought, like, just give me 10 more years. And you know what's wild?
You have already given her that, though. Like, what if she already sees that in you? And we put so much expectation on ourselves.
I understand. But let me land this plane, though, ironically. So I said, give me 10 more years. And as I'm thinking that and feeling scared, you know how I always told you my aunt's angel number is 22? The plane was moving to take off and it suddenly stopped in front of a sign that said 22. And then whenever I see that sign, it's always my aunt with me saying everything's going to be okay. And then I started being like, okay, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. It's a sign from God that whatever time I have is the time that I need, right? And so I wanted to ask you, how do you reconcile when you know you're in Boston, you're with your family, you love them, but you recognize that elderly parents have high expectations and low tolerance, and they can be exhausting as much as a newborn. And so you're so excited about going back to the beautiful life you've created elsewhere. How do you embrace that life you've created without having guilt about leaving them behind and never knowing what goodbye is going to be the last one?
I mean, first of all, I do have guilt. I experience guilt. I experience the sobbing. It
Oh, you saw
sometimes
before?
brings me anxiety. Oh my goodness, yes.
I was judging myself yesterday, like, girl, why are you
No,
crying?
don't judge yourself. Death is just so, there's just so much unknown. You can't know how many years you have left. I
Yeah.
think one of the things I find peace in is my parents actually telling me that it's not my job to take care of them and worry about. Even though I will keep trying and doing all that I can to take care of them, they have released me and said, you know, we brought you into this world. You've done great by being who you are. Just don't limit yourself worried about us, right? And so they've released me to do that. Another thing, I have a great privilege and blessing. I don't know how many things, miracle really, when I think about all of my friends that have experienced loss or have grown up, without a parent. My
Yeah.
parents have each other. When one of my parents die, and I say when, because everybody's gonna die someday, even though every time I think about it, I get teary-eyed and emotional. I don't know if I'm gonna feel the same about leaving, you know. Try to think about, is there a way I can bring my parents or parent with me if one of them passes away. I don't know, there's like but one of there is guilt, and there is, every moment I have with them, I feel like in my now in these years, I try to be intentional and be present and
Yeah.
make it a good moment. I say I love you every time I get off the phone. I try to create experiences whenever we're together. We do photos almost every year I come home. So we have a lot of memories. And I recognize that we have already lived a great life together. I
Yeah.
grew up almost half of my life in my household with my parents. And so, I think it's okay. I'm still very guilty. I feel very guilty. And I still very much want to have my life and career abroad. And
Yeah.
if guilt takes over at some point, I might very well come back, and and maybe come back for a period until they're both gone and then leave again. Or I don't know what the future is, but right now, this is where I'm at, and I'm trying to be at peace with it.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm trying to enjoy the moments that I do have with them. Yeah.
That
I don't
that
know.
that, that resonates with me because
Yeah.
I feel like when I was younger and more naive about death, I would go home to Boston and then hide in my room to sleep and then go out and see some friends and like say hi, mommy, and kiss her real quick on the way out. And now when I come to Boston, because she has diabetes and hypertension, it makes your skin dry. So what I started doing is the minute I got off the plane, I wash my hands, I get a big pail of hot water and a compress, and I like bathe her feet and like literally lotion her feet. So the minute I come
Such an
home,
act of love.
yeah, and
Such
I
an
like
act of love.
literally I was exhausted and I made a beeline to her room to bathe my mother's feet and lotion her feet and give her a massage because she can't reach down there anymore. And I was like, oh wait, and I saw this before, like in certain African traditions, bathing someone's feet is such an act of love. And I didn't even,
Such an act of love.
and every time I do it, I'm like,
Respect.
it is, because it's like
It's
you've done so
biblical. I
much.
remember the woman who washed Jesus's feet with her hair, I think, or something. Yeah.
Something as simple as bathing my mother's feet, the first day and the last day of me being in town, I did it before I left. I bathed her feet and made sure that she was good and put on her nice fuzzy socks that I got on Amazon for her. And she's like, oh, I feel so good. And then when I walked away, she was like, I just want you to know this is the best Mother's Day I've ever had. I was like, Mommy, Mother's Day was 4 days ago. She was like, all 5 days you've been here is the best Mother's Day I've ever had. She's like, I don't know what's going to
Girl,
happen next year, but this is the best Mother's Day I've ever had. And
that's
I think that's why I
beautiful.
got emotional, because I was like, younger me didn't think about giving her the best Mother's Day. She was just my naggy mother in my face, like not understanding me. So I think if anybody hearing this episode is blessed to still have their parents. And your parents have not hit their 70s yet, because honeys, we talk about the terrible twos. Let's do the circle of life theme. Being 2 years old and being in your 70s, those are the two phases that we need to be talking about, okay? Because the 70s is like the terrible twos of aging. And it really humbles you if your parents are fortunate enough to make it to that age range. And I do cherish moments more now. I live more in the present. Remember, we were talking about in class that trauma makes you a time traveler, right? Because when you're triggered, you go back to the past to where you were previously hurt. And when you're anxious, you're going to the future, assuming you're going to be hurt again. And I have been not a time traveler at all this entire year. I've been living very much in the day. And I love that for me. And with you right now being displaced and being in a whole different country, you're kind of in that space too of having to live for the day, because nothing is your stable reality. I mean, like the Airbnb you have is kind of beautiful though. You did a great job, friend.
Yes, give thanks. It gives me anxiety to like be moving around all the time. Honestly, it's a blessing, and I love the world. And it hasn't played out the way that I had imagined it had. There's been a lot of stops and starts, but I'm still hopeful. And one thing I wanted to add to the parents piece is recognizing my parents have created a life without me that is very full, or their version of full. It might not be my version of full, but it's full. They've gotten used to living and operating without me. And when I feel guilty and think about what I could be doing or whatever, it's kind of me living in the past, or that's the time traveling piece. Like what could I or should I be doing, that I'm not doing? I think you're doing what you're supposed to be, as long as you're present where you're at, and recognizing that they are full adults and they are living their life, whether it is with you or without you. And they will remember those moments. She will remember, God forbid she is by herself and in the bed. She'll remember you washing her feet.
Yeah.
And
And
feel
my
comforted
stepdad
by
is there
that.
too. I tend to not count him in, but my stepdad, he's a sweet man. He's there. She's not alone, technically. All right. We talked a lot about motherhood, being mothers, having mothers, not being mothers, but still having mothers, not having mothers. Do you have any last advice? This is the last question before we wrap up. For anybody who's in their mid to late 30s or even their 40s, right? Because those are the two spaces that we were talking about earlier, who still want to do this, who still want to start a family, biological or otherwise. What advice would you give to some people who are doing the life and partnership and baby and family thing later, like past 35? Any thoughts, insights, advice that you would give to them that you might have wished somebody had given to you when you were embarking on this journey?
It can be done. Believe in yourself, I think, and do your self work and your manifestation or whatever it is, or your prayer, or whatever it is, to get right and see how you want things to play out with intention, so that when people come to tell you you can't, or put things in your way, or obstacles, or create obstacles, or that you are already set in your understanding of what you're capable of, so you can see it through. The medical and that part of it, make sure you have a choice. I'll bring that back again. It's really important to know you don't have to do what your doctor tells. It's not always great advice. You should probably, this is my intentional, should do what your doctor tells you.
Have discernment.
But you don't always have to. And so building your team, like having a good doula. A doula can be a great advocate. They've been through the birthing experience before. They know what's normal, what's not normal. Have a good team that can advocate you or tell you what you can't. My doula told me, you don't have to induce just because your doctor tells you to induce. My first pregnancy, I induced because the doctor said it. And my mother always taught me, do what the doctor says. And my doula said, I was like, I don't have to. That was news. I mean, I should have, sure, that's the bad use of should, known that, but I didn't.
It's okay.
I
Yeah.
didn't. And so with that, that's how I was able to have a vaginal birth after C-section. And for those who don't know what that is, Google it. It's not easy. It's not always successful, but if you can achieve it, if that's what you want, it's a big deal. And it's an even huger deal after 40, and it's possible. And part of it is mindset and believing in yourself, and putting that strong foundation in, so that you can go in with knowing that you can accomplish what you want. It's possible to do all of it. Yeah, I'm still figuring it out. My next thing about figuring it out is going back to work with 2 children instead of 1. I haven't done that yet, so I'm not going to speak Like I
Well,
know about it, but
if we ever
I
find
know
a
it will work
podcast
out.
studio in Boston, we could do a follow-up because child, does Boston not have any podcast studios?
It
Like,
does.
nobody responded to me. Not a single person that I hit in
How
Boston,
many did you hit up?
like 3 or 4.
Oh.
Yeah. So I don't know
Well,
what.
the original one I gave you, I can have my friend put in a call. Like maybe you need to know somebody. Maybe it's not
Yeah,
like a
have
layup
her put
type
in the
thing.
call because I would love to have when I visit Boston and see family an excuse to dip out and do the stuff that I
Yeah.
love as well. This
Mhm.
conversation has been great. I think a lot of people learned a
Yeah,
lot
thank
of
you.
things. A song that I've been listening to lately a lot because I love her voice and I like the song is a Special Occasion by Emily King. Because we're taught, we're taught all the time. I play it at the beginning of class while you guys are waiting for me to cam up, but the song goes, "Life is a special occasion." Because back in the day, she's Puerto Rican. Back in the day, Latin American, Caribbeans, immigrants, actually African Americans, everybody, we've always been taught, save this for a special occasion, save that bottle for a special occasion. And the whole song is, life is a special occasion. The fact
Live
that
your
you woke
life.
up this morning is a special occasion. And so
Mhm.
I think I'm in that era where
That's
everything feels
real.
like a special occasion for me right now. It really does.
Live your life in full living color.
And
For
living
sure.
color. I
Right.
just aged us again. Now, this has been great. Let everybody know where they can find you at now that they've been listening
Yeah.
to you for the past couple hours.
I don't know if I want to be found.
You don't have to. My friend Mel, she was like, they can find me on your page. She was like,
Yeah. They can find me on this podcast. LinkedIn. Maybe LinkedIn. LinkedIn is safe.
now I remember LinkedIn. Okay, if you guys can find Natalie Gill-Mensah
If
on
you can
LinkedIn.
find me, you can Google.
You're the second guest who's like, look, I came on here to talk to you and your friends, but I'm gonna go back to my life now. I appreciate you for making time to do this, love, because you
Thank you for
have actually
inviting
known
me.
me. You've known me longer than any friend I have that's still alive.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'm so honored to be invited. I love what you do and your innovation and your mind and your thoughtfulness. And so it's such a pleasure to be with you.
And thank you for always speaking life into me because you've seen the 17 or so iterations of me. And so I just
I've
appreciate.
liked most of them a lot.
Child, there was a couple of them when I was like, I'm hanging out with some asshole. This is a bad influence. Like, we don't like to think that we can be influenced by who's around us. But I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is your tribe actually does dictate your wavelength.
Your constant has always been your brilliance and your swift, way with language and writing and in words. And so that I've always loved that. I love many things about you, but I love
You like
that.
that's very Gemini of you, friend. You like the words and the stimulation. It's so funny. My mother was had my room redone as a surprise for me. I surprised her for Mother's Day.
Really?
She surprised me by having like a bunch of new carpet and my childhood room decluttered. And she found the journal from 1998. And I opened the journal. It was only 2 pages that I wrote in it before I had lost it. My mother just found it like last week. And this journal from 1998, I talked exactly the same way.
Constant, true.
I was like, I was reading it like,
you've always been your authentic self.
yeah. So for people who think that I'm fraudulent or putting something on, apparently I was talking like this in the 90s too, which I can tell this is probably why I had a lot of people who couldn't stand me because in the 90s you couldn't talk like this without getting in trouble. So I'm happy society has grown. You have always been you. So thank you for being an authentic person. Cue the Golden Girls. Thank you for being a friend.
Thank
Guys,
you.
if you want to find Natalie, you can find her on LinkedIn or on this podcast. If you want to find me,
or not at all.
right at BlueCentric. For those of you, by the way, there's a fraudster out there who has been pretending to be me and soliciting my clients in their DMs asking for money. I need you to know, if anybody named BlueCentric, look at the spelling because they always spell it wrong, slide into your DM and says, hey, can I do a reading for you for a donation? I do not do readings for donations, guys. That is not me. I don't have to do readings for donations. That's not how I move. Please make sure that you know that there's a fraud. And the only way that you can book a reading with me is through bluecentricshop.com/readings. That is the only way, okay? I am not nickel and diming y'all. And I really kind of hate that somebody's trying to impersonate me. But as one of my homegirls told me the other night, she's like, Blue, it means you made it. If somebody wants to be you, it means you made it. So I guess it is what it is. Until next time, please remember to be gentle with yourselves because we're all just human beings doing human shit. Bye. Say bye, Natalie.
Bye.
This is